being a saxophonist, this is like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory for a 10-year-old. And so it's awesome. I was telling him I wish I had about 3 days to camp out here in the backyard and just throw me some scraps out the back door every now and then, and I'd be fine. I'd just go in there and just check out a bunch of horns and hang out and talk shop. You know, so it's great to be here. It's always great to see Mark and the crew, and so thanks to all of you also for coming out and spending a little time with us. Looks like the weather's going to be fine. I've checked it on 2 sources on my iPhone. No precipitation, just some dark clouds, which is nice. Kind of keeps the sun off of us. And want to let you know who you're going to be listening to up here. We have a bunch of music we're going to play for you, and then we'll take some questions, of course. But from St. Louis, right here on the keyboards, Mr. Chris Walters. Sitting in with us on percussion over there, Scott Bryant from St. Louis as well. And from the Boston area, the spaceman himself, Mr. Bill Fanning on the trumpet. Now living in Brooklyn, New York, playing a whole lot of bass for you. He's also playing with the Yellowjackets now as well, Felix Pastorius. And back there on the acoustic drums, I think maybe he invented those also. We spent 14 years together with Bela Fleck the Flecktones. He's a 6-time Grammy Award winner. He's an inventor, a philosopher, an incredible musician. Give it up for the Futureman. Yeah, he's not really here. He's a holograph. So this first tune we're going to play, there's a wonderful saxophonist out on the West Coast in Olympia, Washington, and Bert Wilson. And if you're familiar with the great Lenny Pickett, who plays on Saturday Night Live and has that crazy 7-octave range, Bert was his teacher. And Bert's played with everybody over the years. He's about 72 years old now. And since he was 4 years old, well, he contracted polio when he was 4, and he's been in a wheelchair ever since. And if you've never heard him, he's the greatest saxophonist you've never heard in your life. And he's remarkable on every level. And so whenever I talk to him, which is every month or two, when I'm up there, I always see him also. But whenever I talk to him, rather than saying goodbye on the phone, he always says peace now. So this tune goes out to him, and this is entitled Peace Now. Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah, bring the keyboard up a little bit in here also, please. Chris, can you play?
So that last tune was, this is a brand new record coming out on September 4th called Into the Air, which is the first studio record since 2008. And yeah, September 4th is when it'll be out. And that last tune was a tune entitled Lucky 13. And on that tune on the record, we also have a very special guest named Lionel Luike, who's a brilliant West African guitarist who you may be familiar with his work with Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock, as well as a bunch of his own records. And he's quite remarkable. He's on that and another tune as well on the recording. And we do have that here. You can go over and see Art at any point. He's got a bunch of CDs and new T-shirts and some posters and different things. You're happy to sign anything you want later on too, of course. So that was entitled Lucky 13. I'm going to continue on now with a tune that's on the live record as well as Mutopia. And this one's entitled Al's Greens. Everybody still doing okay? All right. So we're going to play a tune that's pretty new. We've only don't really had the opportunity to play it a couple of times. It's a brand new tune of mine, and been working on it in my basement a little bit. Have a lot of jam sessions in my basement in Nashville, and it's kind of a good exploratory place to try some different things. So this one's entitled The Scrambler, and we hope you like it. So that was a tune called The Scrambler, brand new. And we've never played that in St. Louis before. How about one more time over there for Chris Walters on the keyboards? Scott Bryant on the percussion back there. Bill Fanning on the trumpet. Felix Pastorius on the electric bass. And the one and only Futureman back there on the drums. So this is a clinic. You know, we wanted to play for a while so you could kind of hear what the group is about. And we do a lot of original. It's all original music, and it covers a lot of different styles. So we want to kind of throw some different things at you. We definitely like to play one or two more tunes before we leave. But we also want to open it up for some questions and some thoughts and ideas that you guys might have for anybody in the band. So ask away. Yes, sir. Who's my main influence? Well, I had a lot of main influences, actually. I think that first and foremost, all the people that I play with. All these guys for sure. All the guys in the Flecktones, Dave Matthews Band also. As far as other saxophone players, it's a long list, but starting with Coleman Hawkins and Lester Young, Ben Webster, I love those guys. And I like to delve into that style every now and then also, and I'll play a little melody of something like that in a minute. Dexter Gordon, really love also, of course, Charlie Parker, Cannonball, Train, Sonny, Joe Henderson, Wayne Shorter, Ornette Coleman. You know, the list goes on, and all the people that they've influenced, people like Mike Brecker, Steve Grossman, Greg Osby, Kenny Garrett, you know, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the contemporary guys also. I try to find out what's out there and keep an ear to the ground. So a lot of people, but a lot of world music also. I listen to a lot of African music, in particular North African music out of Mali. And I love that Arabic influence that's rolled in there, and a lot of Brazilian music, a lot of choro music, and folk music out of Brazil also, like fife and drum music. A lot of folk music from the States as well, a lot of the Alan Lomax recordings. Gypsy music, folk music from other countries. Flamenco, I love flamenco. I was thinking as on that last tune, when Scott was doing all the clapping stuff, I was thinking, wow, when I record this, that's the sound that I want on there. You know, like get some people doing the real traditional flamenco clapping, which could be a really cool thing. I hadn't thought about that until just then when we played it. So a lot of, really kind of whatever I can get my hands on, I'll listen to and see if it sparks something. And so, yeah. So a lot of main influences. Yes, sir. To change the what now? Yeah. He was asking, do I have something on the alto that changes the harmonics? I do, but it's actually not on the instrument. I'll show you in a second. What's that? Oh yeah, come on up. A number of years ago, well, I guess going back, you were talking about some main influences, and Mike Brecker is certainly one of those influences, I think, for any tenor player having grown up in the last 40 years. And being 20 years old, you know, I know some people that were heavily influenced by him. Not even close. But come on up. Yeah, I'll show you what's here. So he was asking about what's changing the harmonics of the horn. And I run through a number of different pedals, one of which is a Qtron envelope filter. Yeah, I'll show you on the tenor. Hang on. I like the way the Qtron sounds a little better on the tenor, so I'll give you a quick demonstration of these. Basically, the Qtron envelope filter is a guitar pedal. And as the sound opens up, it kind of goes wah, wah, wah. All right, so that's this sound. Hang on. This is the regular sound. Well, not really. Okay, and with the Qtron, it's kind of cool. It's kind of funky, you know, kind of gets into that almost like a rhythm and guitar sound. Yeah, so this one, the other one that I'm using, is what's called a Line 6. And it's an M9, what they're calling a Stompbox Modeler. Okay? So it's basically got every Line 6 pedal in it that's available, but I'll hold it up for you. Okay, I'm not sure if you can all see that. I don't want to pull out the cables here. It changes octaves, it gives a harmonizer, it's got flanging, it's got echo. I'll give you a little example of this as well. And you can change all the parameters also within the thing, which is the turn of a button. And it's very simple to use. So again, you've heard the regular sound. This is the bass octave. Tracks pretty quickly also, and by tracking what I mean is that it stays up with my sound pretty darn close. So if I'm playing quickly using that bass octaver, so it tracks pretty quickly right along with it. It's almost like a shadow that's going along. Now there's also a harmonizing effect. I've got it so that if I'm playing a C, it's also sounding a G, so I'm getting 2 notes at a time. And you can really hear the tracking on that. Another sound that I like to use, it's also got reverbs on it. And you can tweak those out a lot as well. Another sound I like to use is this echo. It's called a sweep echo. And I'll just play one note and you can kind of hear what it does. Okay? But I can also change by tap tempo. I can make it a longer time in between the delay. Or I can make it quicker. So I can kind of tweak that as well. I can make it as long as I want. I can change the duration of the space between when I play and when it actually sounds. And there's another one, it's a 80A flanger. I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds kind of cool. And so then you combine those sounds also, like if I use that with the harmonizer. Something like that. So again, all right. I paid him $20 to ask that question, by the way. I haven't told him yet. No, so there's a lot of different sounds, and a lot of times, Bill has one of these as well, and it's not working right now. And we're trying to figure out why that is, but we don't know. But he'll get into doing a lot of what we call space trumpet stuff as well. And he's also got a Digitech bass whammy pedal that he uses. And you can hear that there's a lot of that stuff on the new record also, Into the Air. We're using a lot of pedals. We're trying to take those sounds. We're trying to be as tasteful as we can with it. And I hope that we are. You know, because obviously we love the sound of the acoustic instruments, but we're also trying to expand it a little bit. We're trying to expand our ears, and I think that we're trying to expand the ears of the people that are listening. And to me, it's like, you know, why should the guitar players have all the fun? And or the bass players or the keyboard players. So there's a lot of sound. And I've experimented with sound a lot on the instrument as well, figuring out how to split different notes and multiphonics and different things. different forms of articulation. So I can split certain notes without using the harmonizer. So this is just a regular sound, right? And that's basically playing between two different octaves. And basically I'm changing things a little bit in the throat and a little bit with the embouchure. But different ways of playing chords also. Bert Wilson is a master at that. He has like 25 different fingerings for chords on the saxophone, these different clusters. And he showed me a couple of them, which are really cool. And so, you know, you can kind of get into using different kinds of multiphonics for different effects. Sometimes at the end of a tune, if it's a particular chord that you know on the saxophone, you can actually play that chord at the end of a tune, which is kind of cool. Just some different unusual methods of looking at the instrument. So by using a pedal, it allows me to do that sort of over the entirety of the horn. Now, if I split that tone with using the harmonizer, I'll kick the harmonizer on in the middle of it. So. Maybe. So there's a lot of sound that's going on there, and a lot of stuff to kind of play around with and experiment with. The word improvisation, you know, we use that word and we sort of bat it around a lot. Which for some reason just reminded me that I had a dream the other night about badminton. I'm not sure why, but I did. And so you know, we bat that word around a lot, the word improvisation, and we sort of think of jazz as sort of having a stranglehold on that word. You know, it's like other types of music, and maybe like rock or reggae or funk or whatever it is. But with jazz, a lot of things that, I think the main word that comes to mind is improvisation. But the word improvisation has nothing to do with music. You know, it doesn't have anything to do with jazz. And so I would ask a few of you right now, like, raise your hands, like, what do you think the word is asking for? Where do you think that word comes from? And what do you think it really means? What are you being asked for when somebody says to improvise? To make it better, that's good. That's a good place to start. Absolutely. What else? Say again? Creativity. To imitate. What else? Expand the horizons of listening. Good. What else? Yeah. Playing something that sounds good. What else?
Make it up as you go along.
Make it up as you go along. What else?
Make do what you feel.
Say again?
Make do.
Make do. That's right. What else?
Blow your mind.
Change it up. What else?
Blow your mind.
Blow your mind. Yes.
Spontaneity.
Spontaneity. Anything else?
Practice.
Practice. Yeah, that's a good place to start. Yeah. In the moment. Okay. These are all really important parts of improvisation. These are all really important elements of improvisation. But if you look up the word, you'll find that it has a Latin root. And the Latin root is improvisio. And literally translated, the word means unexpected or surprise. Okay? Unexpected or surprise. Which to me sort of opens the door wide open to try a lot of different things. All these elements that you just spoke about are really important elements within the improvisation. But the idea of the unexpected or surprise, trying something, being curious, sort of going down a path maybe that you haven't gone down before. And so when you're surprised, it kind of does something in your body, like whether you get goosebumps or whether you see an audience that sort of moves to the front of their chair, you know, you kind of lean in, it kind of draws you into something. So it exists in any kind of music. It exists in everyday life also. You can improvise walking down the street if you want, you know, unexpected or surprise. So I think that the word, if you ever thought you needed permission to express yourself, it's already in the word. It's already saying, I want something unexpected from you. I want something surprising from you. So it's up to us to continue that creativity also. It's up to us to allow ourselves to sort of crack it open and see what's inside. And not just young people. You know, you look around at kids and they're, you know, you can put a stick on the ground and a rock, and they're going to be there for 2 or 3 hours. You know, so there's unexpected and surprise right there. But how do you retain that, you know, throughout your life? How do you find creative ways of being creative? And I think that's really the rub. You know, finding those things that you're really passionate about, and finding out how do you find the unexpected? How do you find out the surprising in it? How do you use your own creativity with the spirit of improvisation? And that's one of the things I really love about playing with these guys, is that everybody to me exemplifies that spirit of improvisation, that spirit of surprise and unexpected. And I think that they personify it in who they are as people, and as well as who they are as players and artists. And, yeah. I'll give it up for that. Yeah, the question.
I wanted to ask Felix.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys were here last time, he would like to play the practice between songs he practiced before, and I just kind of wondered, what do you practice? I mean, what helps you be a better player? Practice.
The question was, he noticed that Felix practices a lot between tunes, or when there's downtime, and he's just wondering what he practices.
I mean, what do you focus on really?
What do you focus on?
I know you got to learn a lot of music for the gigs you're playing, but what do you practice?
Got to learn a lot of music, and what do you practice?
It's a good, yeah, exactly. It's a secret. Yeah. You'll have to buy my book. Not yet, but I will. And I'll take pre-orders now. There's a lot to practice, obviously, and I know that's kind of redundant to say, and I know a lot of people talk about that all the time, but especially on an instrument, like a stringed instrument that's tuned in fourths, it's kind of like having a piano that's layered on top of each other. There's endless voicings or fingerings for almost anything. So for me, it's all about connecting dots and figuring out as many different possibilities to even simple things like triads. So at first it was scales and chords and combinations of two, not realizing that chords and scales were the same thing until much later. And then eventually taking away notes and practicing more simple ideas. And then right now I practice sax improv books, Gary Campbell and Jerry Coker, and it's just, you know, and also trying to figure out different rhythms and hanging around these guys. I mean, everyone practices something differently, and I try to pull from every instrument because every instrument looks at music and music theory specifically in a different way. So it's just, for me, it's just trying to keep my ears open and, you know, practice, but as much as possible, you know. And it's everything. It's chromatic, it's scales, it's chords, it's voicings, fingerings. It's endless. You know, the bass plays the same notes as any other instrument, so you can play pretty much anything. So.
What about when you guys were working on in the band? You had it written down in your notebook, and you're trying to explain. You know, you go to the E and then the A and then the.
What was that? What was it that I was working on there?
Basic
example of something. Russell Ferrante, the piano player, keyboard player, and composer for the Yellowjackets, showed me something, and it was just a way to move through a scale, and it's angular and it's very mathematical, and I really enjoy that aspect to learning theory. I never had a teacher, so for me it was all about trying to break down, taking a scale and breaking it down, and using basic common sense and mathematical ideas to really get inside and figure out what's going on. When I learned piano first, when I first saw the difference between a C major chord and a D minor chord, and I noticed that they were both the same. They were both white keys, but I noticed that there was no sharps or flats involved. I noticed that there was a certain space in between. I didn't have a classical teacher, right? But I noticed that there was a shape or a space in between the C and the E. It was 3 half steps. In between the E and G was 2 half steps, and then on the D the F was 2, and then 3, and I was like, okay, so that must be what the difference is between major and minor. And I was 7. And for me, that's what theory, it started from that, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, two things. I noticed you
One question per person.
had your bell mic on a different part of the soprano.
Yeah, I have the bell mic on a different part of the soprano, yep.
But why is it?
Oh,
Does it come out the horn better than
well,
the horn part?
no, because when you mic the soprano from the front, it's very nasal. Let me see if I can give you a quick example. I'll just use this mic that's here. When you're miking it from the front, and a lot of times, like if you're playing in a really loud situation, sometimes you have to do that because you can't hear it. But if it's coming right out of the bell, you know, obviously it's a straight horn. It's not sort of getting bounced around by anything, and the slight curve on the neck also helps to kind of warm the sound a bit. But if I mic it from the front, this is what it sounds like.
There we go. See ya.
Mark, you never told me.
Are we on a hill?
Yeah, apparently so. There's water right there. It seems like 1,000 jokes. So. It's a little bright and kind of brittle and nasally and kind of sounds lousy. But if you mic it from the body of the horn, it won't be as loud, okay? Turn this up just a little bit. You can hear the difference, right? Yeah, it sounds way better, absolutely. So, the first time I saw somebody doing that was when I watched a video of Branford Marsalis playing with Sting. And he had two mics. He had one underneath to get a little bit of that raspiness, but the other one was on the side of the horn. And I thought, that's the key, man. That's one of the ways that he gets that sound. And you'll notice also that if you mic a clarinet, the body of the horn is a good place to mic it as well. And I think that you get a little bit more warmth from it, well, a lot more warmth. You can really play the mic a little better as well, like kind of moving on and off the mic. So that's why it's on that position on the soprano.
Cool.
Yeah.
And, I have a similar envelope follower and
Uh-huh.
Dr. Q,
Yeah.
but I don't have a bell mic. Are you able to get a decent tone with not with a saxophone mic?
Yeah, the question was, with a different mic, is it a little more difficult with the Qtron to get that sound? A little bit, because you're going to be pulling in other sounds. Sometimes if the monitors are too loud also, you'll feed back quite a bit because it's pulling all that sound. If it gets louder, it's based on volume. The Q is based on volume, so the louder you play, the more that envelope filter opens, is my understanding of it. So that if something is loud on stage, like the monitor, or if you're close to the drums, it's going to be a little more difficult. So I tend to play softer, and I play a little differently when I'm using the Qtron as well.
Picks up by attack.
Picks up by attack, yep. Yeah, which has to do with volume also. Yeah,
On that filter, in a small venue or in the backyard,
yeah.
it seems like what coming out of the speaker was just that envelope, that
Uh-huh.
envelope filter.
Uh-huh.
But we can hear a normal tone because
Sure.
we're way.
Right.
When you're recording or when you're in a bigger venue, do you split the mic or do you use two mics, one to pick up the normal tone and one that's going through that?
Sure. Yeah, the question was when I'm using the Qtron, coming out of the speakers, it sounds like it's just the Qtron coming out, and he's wondering when I record, if I have two mics or if I split to get part of the regular sound as well as part of the Qtron. And yes, live I have, with Dave Matthews, I have a regular line, which is a clean line, and I have another line that has all my effects. When I recorded this last record, we did the same thing. I had the Qtron on a different mic, and I had my clean and direct sound, if you will, through a separate mic as well. But they were close together, so I wasn't getting any phasing. When I'm using that sound, though, I'm really going after that sound. That's what I want. And I'm trying not to really roll too much else into it. There's a little bit of a hint of the regular sound in there, but not a lot. And when I first heard that sound, it was on a Brecker Brothers record called Heavy Metal Bebop. And Mike Brecker was using what's called a mutron. And I thought it was like the greatest sound I had ever heard on the saxophone. And so I searched for literally almost 20 years before I found out what that was, before anybody could tell me definitively what that was. and I think I was up in Wisconsin with the Flecktones, and Bela had broken some strings and had to go get some strings or something. And so we went to this little shop, and I was asking him, I said, yeah, you know, there's this sound, blah, blah, blah. He said, oh, yeah, well, this electro-harmonics unit called the Qtron just came back out, and it used to be the Mutron, but this is basically the same thing. So he said, you know, why don't you go back to soundcheck and try it, and, you know, and if you like it, you know, you can buy it. And I was off to the races. I was off to the races, yeah. I was kind of like, well, this is, I've been looking for this for 20 years. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, when I write a new song, what's the rehearsal process? That's a great question, actually, because I write a lot of material. I've written well over 200 tunes at this point. The tunes that we're pulling from on this tour are between 30 and 35 tunes, and which is still a lot of music, you know, when you figure that we're playing maybe 9 or 10 tunes a night. And we don't get to everything, but, you know, we try to make it interesting every night. The rehearsal process, it kind of varies. Sometimes if I'm working on something, again, I have these jam sessions in my basement, so I'll sort of sketch something out and call whoever's around, and it may be different instrumentation, sometimes acoustic bass, sometimes electric bass, different keyboard players and drummers and horn players, and so kind of whoever's around, you know, we'll all bring music and sort of convene and play each other's music. So that rehearsal process, a lot of times I'll just use a single mic in Pro Tools and tape it, so I can go back and I can tweak it around. I can move sections also just to hear what things sound like. And I go back and I listen to it and I decide, okay, does it work this way? And in the middle of rehearsal, we may go, oh, it needs an extra bar here, or we need a different part. You know, what about this? What can we find after this section that works? What do we want to do solo-wise? So I kind of suss it out, and then when this band gets together to rehearse, normally I'll have everything in Sibelius, which is a notation program. Sibelius, Finale, there's a couple others also. I use Sibelius. And I want to make sure that everybody has the same part. And so we get together, and a lot of times we'll still tweak it even further. I also try to make sure that if there's any kind of an MP3 that's available, I get it up into Dropbox so they can check it out. They can listen to it. They can look at the sheet music. I want to give them every opportunity to be as prepared as they can possibly be. And if they want a CD, I'll make a CD and send it to them. But Dropbox is a great method of sharing information as well. Yeah. Yeah. What else? Yeah. What microphone am I using? On the saxophone, I'm using a DPA, and I've found that it by far blows everything else out of the water. It's what a lot of symphony orchestras are using, and they happen to make now clip-ons for the saxophone and trumpet. And the first clip-ons I used were the Shores, the 98s, the SM98s, and I would just look at what other players were playing, like Michael Brecker, Joe Lovano, those guys were using the Shores. Then they moved to AMTs, Applied Microphone Technology. And I met the guy, Les Silver, that was running that company. And I moved over to AMT. And I thought they were superior to the Shores. Then a friend of mine a few years ago told me about these Dpa mics. He said they've just come out and they're making for horns now. So I tried one and was absolutely blown away. And so we had a couple with Dave Matthews. And the trumpet player used me, so well, let's A-B them. So we had both mics on our horns. So we'd flip on one, turn it off, flip on the other. And literally within 2 or 3 notes, the sound guys were like, get those mics right now. And there was that much of a difference. And they're not cheap. They're about $600 each. And they don't do any kind of endorsement deals. They basically don't make much money on the mics. And so everybody that plays these mics has to buy the mics. But I'll tell you, man, the sound is incredible. Bill was using my AMT for quite a while. And I said, you know, try this microphone. And as soon as he tried it, he was on the phone within an hour, calling up the guy and say, send it right now. And so we had it overnighted. You know, it was that much of a difference. Yeah, so the DPA, I don't even know what it stands for. DPA. Yeah. Yeah.
Do we have a Jaco anecdote?
A Jaco anecdote.
Jaco Pastorius anecdote?
Sure, I'm familiar with who you mean. And in what sense?
Well, I mean, was it hard? Was it more of a, maybe was it more of a help or a hindrance growing up and like this, you know, son of like a legend?
I'm going to let Felix take this one.
practice like he did?
I think if you want to be a musician, everyone should practice, and it's not really you trying to beat anybody. It's you trying to beat yourself. I mean, you can only be your best friend and adversary and component. You know, I mean, it's an endless struggle to become a musician. If that's truly what you want to do, it's not about trying to beat anybody else or be better. I practice and I enjoy practicing. That's a big help for sure. I know some people don't enjoy it so much, but I do it only for myself. And I love my father's music. I love my father, and you know, I've had the benefit to meet amazing musicians, hang, not just listen to amazing musicians, but hang with them, personal, you know, situations. So there's some cool parts of it, but there was never ever an issue with a hindrance or something that took away or something I was trying to. And I know it's an easy way to look at it, but it's not.
I was going to follow up on that because, like, my brother Victor Wooten plays the bass. My oldest brother taught him to play. And he has 4 kids, and each one of them is finding their own voice. And I think that being in a family where there's music, it just allows them to splash the water even harder if they want to, because the parents aren't necessarily resisting it. And but everyone's finding their own voice, and that's good. I think whether you're, you know, the offspring of someone that's already made a name for themselves, you know, maybe it just gets you have a lot of the environment around you early. You know, like Victor's kids have been on tour buses and stuff, so it's not a big deal. They've been on stage in front of thousands of people already, and it's just natural, like their playground. So, you know, it's like they're having a good field trip the whole time. But as far as their own voice, each one of them has to do that themselves. And we find out that, you know, people are born with personalities just waiting to sprout, just like seeds, man. You know, the watermelon is waiting to be a watermelon. The orange can't wait to be an orange, you know. And people are kind of like that. They got their own fingerprint, and you just trying to give them water, give them room, give them space, give them encouragement, a little advice here and there. You know, like I'm showing Adam how to swing already. It takes a long time sometimes to learn how to get that right. So, whoa, I can give him a little insight and stuff like that. So, you know, yeah, so we're just always trying to find our own voice. And Miles Davis said that sometimes it takes a long time to learn to play like yourself. And so it's never too early to start.
Yeah, let's take a couple more questions, and then we'll play this thing to a close. Yes? Uh-huh. This is going to be good. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. First of all, thank you for coming out. Yeah. The question was, she's in high school, and she's wondering about consistency of sound. And this is something that I've thought a lot about. So I'm really glad you asked this question. She said on certain days, she said like today, she said I felt like I had a really great sound, like the best sound. And she said, and then last week, I felt like I had a terrible sound. And how do you sort of reconcile that? And are there tips for kind of figuring that out? And there are actually. There are a number of different ways of sort of dealing with the consistency of sound. If you're working on tone, and I also roll dynamics into that as well. I'm a big, I preach the fundamentals a lot, and tone and dynamics is one of those. So you have to work on long tones first of all. You've got to build this embouchure, and you've got to work these muscles. If you can see, if I can actually flex these muscles, and so you can see here. Okay, you cut it out. I'm putting on a calendar next year. But these muscles are tighter on here, so when you're doing long tones, you have to start soft. You have to use the tuner also. Start soft, go up to loud, and back down to soft. I recommend at least 10 minutes a day, okay, every day. And for those of you that haven't done that, I would put out the challenge. I call it the long tone challenge. That do this for a week, twice on every note, moving up or down chromatically for 1 week, 10 minutes a day, 70 minutes. If at the end of that week you don't notice a difference in your own tone, don't ever do long tones again. It works, you know, it works. So one way of being consistent is to keep your embouchure strong, keeping your ability to control the air. Past that, you start to get into mouthpiece and reed strength, and that's part of the problem. Okay, when you're working with a reed, reeds are very inconsistent, and you're dealing with a piece of wood that changes. Some people tend and prefer to soak their reeds 100% of the time, so they're basically completely waterlogged. But you've got to change the water every day, okay, or else they'll get a little nasty. All right, I would recommend using filtered water also. Because I think the chlorine will destroy the reed a little bit. One of the other things, there's a technique by a guy named Joe Allard, who was a really amazing teacher. And he kind of taught everybody, Brecker and Branford and Eddie Daniels, I think, and the list goes on. But one of the techniques that I saw one time is that he checks both sides of the reeds, meaning that you can sort of block off one side by tilting the head one side to the other, and with part of the jaw you stop one side of the reed from vibrating. So regular, it's like that. Now if I'm just testing the left side, I'm tilting my head, not the horn, but just my head, and I'm going to block off the right side of the reed. Okay, I'm going to do it to the other side. I'm going to block the left side. Now, to me, the left side is a little more dead than the right side. Do you hear the difference? Everybody hear that difference? This is the left side. The right side? It's slight, but it's there, okay? Now this reed is pretty well balanced, but if I had a lousy reed, you would hear that one side would be much more dead than the other. So one of the things that you can do is you can get a wood block or something flat and square with a little pad on the bottom of it, like just like a thin pad of some sort, and then take some 400 grade sandpaper, and you're never going to touch the heart of the reed. You're never going to touch the sort of, like if you made a little bit of a diamond right there above the cut, you're never going to touch that part of the reed. That's where the strength of the reed comes from. But otherwise, you could take that, and if you had that, you could go in the opposite direction on a piece of glass, okay? Go in the opposite direction, going like a crescent moon shape, and then test the sides again. And take a little bit off, like 5 or 6 strokes. If it's dead, yeah, and it'll liven up a reed. Once you balance a reed, you can get a reed to last for a long time, a really long time, because it's all basically vibrating at the same consistency. So it's not fatiguing any one particular side of the reed. Like for example, on this trip, I had balanced a bunch of reeds before I left, and the first reed that I used, it lasted until, let's see, it lasted 3 nights in DC, 2 shows a night. It lasted in Cleveland for the whole gig. It lasted in Chicago for the clinic. It lasted in Utah for the first clinic, second clinic, and up until that night, that's when I changed reeds. And that's a long time, you know, and we're playing hard each night. And for whatever reason, it just kept working. As you get into altitude also, you have to use a softer reed strength. So when I got into altitude, it was fine. And so balancing a reed is really important. You can use a reed brush, a little bit of sandpaper, sometimes a reed knife. And I'm going to try to post some videos actually on my website at jeffcoffin.com that has some of that information on there also, and we'll show you how to do it. So that's actually a good impetus for me to get that stuff up there. Yeah, it's a great question. And a lot of times too, the consistency is up here. You know, it's important to make sure that you're prepared. Find some good reeds, break them in. Like play 5 or 6 reeds at a time as you're breaking them in. And again, keeping them soaked might not be a bad idea. Try that, see if it works. You know, good, great question. What else? Yeah. Do I use a click track in the studio? Usually not. Every now and then I will, but usually not. I like to try to get that live feel, and music should have a little breath in it. One more time? How do I direct the musicians? Well, that's another great question. I try to give them as little direction as possible. And the reason for that is that I want them to find their own parts. I want them to come up with something creative. I may have an idea that's sort of a basis for the tune. Because if you play the Lucky 13 for a second, this is a bass line that I came up with for this tune, and that's what the whole tune is based on. And that's basically what I came up with first, and he kind of morphed it a little bit. You put that little extra turn, you know. And so then I thought, okay, you know, that's all I had. And I thought, well, I need a melody now. And so I just kind of looped that, and when Felix and I, we wrote a bunch on this record together. It's a very collaborative record. And so I looped that, and then I just thought, okay, I'm just going to improvise over it, but I want something simple. So just a real simple melody line over it. And so rather than having him just play that same line that I had written, I said, you know, morph it a little bit, just kind of open it up. And so, you know, he's going to figure out a much better way of playing the bass than I could possibly tell him to play it. Or Futureman or whoever else. And same with keyboards. And the melodies that Bill and I are playing, we may work some new harmonies into it, different ways of phrasing it, different dynamic levels. But I try to step out of their way as much as I can. But still, if there's something that I really want, I can kind of, you know, be gentle about guiding that direction. And that's something I really learned from Bela and Futureman and Victor also. It's kind of like, just get out of the way and let it happen. Yeah. Yes. The carbon fiber reeds, yep. Okay, he's also in high school and he's wondering about the carbon fiber reeds and also what reeds would be good for you to be using as wood reeds as well. On baritone, I play fiber cell. And the thing that I like about it is that it's very consistent. For baritone, because it's a much larger reed, it's more difficult for me to find something that I really like. So I use what's called a fiber cell. And I think that's as close as I've found to a regular reed, because I think that it's like there's strands in it. Okay. If you're looking for something that won't wear out, that'll give you a fairly consistent sound, that's not a bad way to go. Rico also has what's called plastic cover, which are those black reeds that's got that like plastic coating on it. And I play those on baritone also. On these horns, I play all wood reeds. And I would say that in high school, you know, probably a 2.5 or a 3 is really good. And there's a number of different brands. I play all Van Doren stuff on tenor and alto. Actually, on alto, I play tenor reeds. And I've done it. What's that?
Cut them down like Charlie?
No, I don't cut them down. I don't cut them down at all, but you can see that it's a tenor reed. Okay?
Does that give it a fatter tone?
Well, it does for me. It gives it a quicker response. And it allows me to kind of get up and down the horn a little bit easier. Do you play alto or tenor? Okay. Try it. You know, see what happens. But I would say a 2.5 or a 3. Van Doren, Rico also makes great stuff. I play, on soprano, I play Alexander Superial, which is a little bit more of an expensive reed, in a little bit of a different cut. But I would say that those strengths are probably pretty good. Finding a good mouthpiece also, you know, this is, man, come here and check this stuff out. I mean, it's amazing what they have. And the thing is, you can try a lot of stuff also, which is really great. But it's important to find something that works for you. Don't play something because somebody else plays it. Play it because it inspires you to play. Like if you're looking for a new mouthpiece, try a few different things out. You don't have to buy a $300 mouthpiece. You know, you can probably get $75 or $100 mouthpiece that really works for you, that has a good sound, that you're like, wow, man, this feels really good to play. And it's the same with an instrument, too. If you want to be a professional player, eventually you have to get a professional horn. But there's a lot of great used horns also. And again, this is an awesome, awesome, awesome place to try to find those things. And come in and try some stuff out. And, spend a couple hours, man, get to know these guys and talk to them and see what they might recommend. Because once they hear you play also, they can recommend sort of a horn that's going in that direction. Different bore sizes, different neck sizes, different feels, and go by the sound. Obviously, like, I don't care how the horn looks. It doesn't matter to me. It's all about the sound. This is unlacquered. All my horns, except for my alto, are unlacquered. And I've got an unlacquered alto as well. But I'm looking for sound. And I play all Yamaha horns. And they're incredible. They're fantastic. They're all the 82Zs. And so again, play something that works for you. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How often do you either let other people jam with you or just jam with you? How often?
I would say fairly often, especially when I'm home. If there's young players that have just moved into town, I try to be as welcoming as I can, and because I think that moving to a new place, it's really difficult. And so if a young player has moved into town and I have an opportunity to hear them playing, I like the way they play, I'll invite them over to the house to play. And for me, it breaks down a lot of barriers very quickly. And I try to be as inviting as I can. And we do a lot of school clinics also, and a lot of times, we'll work with bands there and get people to play and that kind of thing. So it really depends on the situation, but we try to reach out as much as we can. Yeah. One last question, and we're going to play one more tune. Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. You can go on my website. There's an education page with contact information. And I do clinics all over the country. Absolutely. Get in touch with me. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to play one more tune for you. Once again, Chris Walters over there in the keys. Scott Bryan on the percussion sitting in. Bill Fanning on the trumpet. Felix Pastorius on the bass. The Futureman back there. Jeff Coffin, the mutate. And again, when we're finished, go over there and see Art and kind of lighten our load. We're going to try to get some better gas mileage going back to Nashville. So, hey, thank you once again, Mark Overton. Everybody here at Saxquest, give these guys a big round of applause. This is really great. It's really great. So we're going to finish up with a tune. We do a lot of music that's in odd meters. And this is decidedly an odd meter. This is a tune called The Mad Hatter Rides Again. And it's in the key. It's in the time signature of 8.5. We'll give you the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. You can also group it in a couple of different ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So it's got a little kind of lopsided thing. So this is influenced by Maceo Parker and some sort of Indian rhythm stuff. Okay, Mad Hatter Rides Again. Thanks very much, you guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Mark, and everybody at Saxquest. Chris Walton, Scott Bryan, Bill Fanning, Felix Pastorius, the Futureman, Jeff Coffin, and the Mutate. Thank you very, very much, everybody. Thanks for staying with us. Good night. Thanks for all your great questions, too.